Hello. Hey, folks. I am coming to you from a kind of a different space here this morning. Well, actually, it's just the end of morning here in Seattle, but I know you folks back on the East Coast are in afternoon. And I'm just going to kind of chit-chat till we start saying, hey, Drew. Drew, I just read about your doggy. Sorry. Even when you expect the old guys to go, it's still kind of tough. So thinking about you. So yeah, we've got folks filling up here. So interestingly enough, I'm coming to you from Seattle, where I'm speaking at the Northwest Flower and Garden Festival this afternoon. And hey, Rebecca from Alberta. And I could not get Wi-Fi on the floor of the Flower and Garden Show. I guess you basically have to purchase it as a vendor, and it just wasn't easy for me to do that, so I could not. I mean, I had hoped to walk around and show y'all a little bit of the cool stuff here, but we couldn't do that. Oh my goodness, we're really filling up here. Hey, Helen, Lotus, and Tana. So today we're talking sunflowers, which I'm sure is just like zinnias, is going to be a really hot topic. And I have a few things to say before we get started. And you all were so good about this last time. What you can do to really help me after this is broadcast is to like it and share it. And when you share it, that saves it on your feed as well as helps me with Facebook. So the more sharing that happens, the better. Hey, Michael and Linda and Heidi. And so it's just 12 o'clock here on the West Coast. I know a lot of our people we have people from all over the country, so everybody's got different time zones. It about exploded my brain to figure out what time to post on Facebook that I was coming on here. So I'm looking at my list here, and I have a lot of questions, or several questions. And I don't know if you noticed, but I'm losing my voice. I did not get the flu. Traveling all over the countryside the last 10 days. But I got off the plane in Seattle and my allergies are killing me and they make me raspy. If I have a coughing attack, I'm just going to turn y'all to the ceiling and cough and come back. So before we start, so like and share, which I will say several times, and our website is thegardenersworkshop.com. As well as for anybody, especially for the home gardeners, we have a great sunflower seed collection, and we have 20% off all of our seeds till March 1st. The code is SEEDS, SEEDS. So you can just put that in the promotion code when you're checking out, and that's just on seeds. So I'm going to start off by, hey, Daniel and Wendy and Meg and Betsy. We got people in Ontario. We got lots of folks, Cynthia in Atlanta. So we have a nice mix of folks on here. Y'all forgive me for clearing my throat. So I'm going to start off by talking about just some sunflower facts, and then I'm going to jump over to our questions. But in fact, I think the facts are going to answer a lot of those questions. So here are the general sunflower facts, whether it's a single stem or branching. Sunflowers need at least 8 hours of sunlight a day. If you're trying to grow suns in afternoon shade, Facebook Live, that was a little late, wasn't it? So full sun, at least 8 hours a day. And sunflowers are pretty heavy feeders. That means that they appreciate rich soil and, if you can, weekly liquid fertilizer. We use organic Neptune's Harvest, mix it according to directions, and do a soil drench. We, of course, put dry organic fertilizer in the bed when we're preparing. But sunflowers really like food, so you need they'll grow in crummy soil. They just won't grow the fastest or the biggest or the best in those conditions. So, and they also like water. Even though they're really drought tolerant, water helps them to grow faster. You know, for me as a commercial flower farmer, I'm looking how to get from seed to sellable bloom as fast as possible, right? And water is a big part of that. We do not irrigate our sunflowers. We don't even put tape down. what happens, because we have so much rain, we are so flooded at home right now. Stevie sent me photos earlier today. And although my peas and my beets have popped, all around them and all over our property is just gullies of water. So we get probably about, I'm going to guess, I think we normally get about 45 inches of rain a year. So we get a decent amount of rain. So we don't even put irrigation tape down on sunflowers for production. We water them in by hand when they're planted, and then they're pretty much on their own. But you all know we have great soil, which retains moisture. So keep that in mind. Yeah, Teresa's saying Central Virginia too. I mean, he said it's still raining there. So anyway, I can't worry about that right now. So that is the general: full sun, great soil. They're heavy feeders. And pretty much you can grow a sunflower under those conditions. Now, there's two ways to start sunflowers. Sunflower seeds can be planted indoors and planted out as a transplant, or you can plant them in the garden. Well, sunflowers, just like zinnias for me, we always start indoors. It's just less work, y'all. Less work, better stand of plants. You bypass some of the problems. So we start sunflowers. So in a home gardening situation, when maybe you're starting 10 to 20 sunflowers every couple of weeks to have a steady supply, I would use the 2-inch blocker. But in a commercial application for like us, where we used to plant 1,200 a week, but now we plant 500, we use plug trays, 128 plug trays, and we plant them out into the garden when they're 2 to 3 weeks old. You don't want to be sitting on them any longer than that. It is easy and quick work. So that's what we choose. Yes, you can plant sunflower seed directly out in the garden. You need to sow thicker than you need plants, because stuff just happens out in the garden, especially birds, squirrels, taking the seed. And all of these problems are just avoided when you plant a plant that's probably, I'll guess and say they're probably 6 to 7 inches tall. When we plant them out, they pull out of the plug tray really easily. So we always plant transplants. It's just easier. Once again, there's other ways to do it, but this is the quickest and the most effective way we can do them. And so I just read, somebody wrote, if I plant outdoors, the squirrels think I have laid out a buffet for them. Well, that's when you use row cover. If you have a rabbit and squirrel or a cardinal, the bird cardinals are the worst for pulling transplants up to try to find the seed at the bottom. Row covering your transplants for 10 to 14 days after planting prevents all of those problems. So that is the way that we choose to do it. The other way, the other thing that what drives us to start indoors is we can plant earlier. We can plant our first transplants as soon as the last frost is passed. But if you want sunflowers to germinate in the garden, you have to wait a couple of more weeks until the soil is actually warm, or you're going to have poor germination, spotty plants, which is just really a problem. So your choice is your personal preference. But for commercial growers, I will tell you that most of us start transplants and plant them out in their 2 to 3 weeks. Now, there's two different types of sunflowers. There's single bloom per stem, one plant, one bloom, or there's branching sunflowers. And I had so many questions. It's so funny. Everybody wants to grow those branching sunflowers. But I will tell you, if you're a home gardener, you can grow the heck out of branching sunflowers. If you're a commercial farmer, you might dabble in branching sunflowers for a year, but then you soon learn that they are not commercial quality at all. So many of the questions that were put ahead of time are about the branchers. So here's the deal about branching sunflowers. There's a lot of beautiful different colors, is why people are drawn to them. But they just do not make good cuts. Their stems are soft. I'm just looking down at my notes, y'all. The stems are soft and they prematurely drop petals. I don't care how tight I would, if the petals are this tight on the bloom, if I cut those Moulin Rouges, which everybody seems to like, our customers didn't like them, I liked them. You can cut them on Friday tight to take to market on Saturday, and they're dropping petals at the market. They just are not a good commercial cut. So branching sunflowers are not even an option if you are in business, in my opinion, in my experience. Let's put it that way. However, if you're a home gardener and you want to grow branchers, there are some beautiful ones. Many of them have black oil sunflower seeds, so that means you can grow them for the birds. What we do when we grow them for that reason, for the birds, is when they get to be the transplants get to be about 12 to 15 inches tall, pinch the branching sunflowers down to right above the bottom two leaves, and that establishes longer stems and more of them. So pinching your branching sunflowers will really help with that. So once again, we do not grow branching sunflowers as a commercial cut. And I understand, I was enamored with them for many years and they annoyed me to no end. The Joker was one that I loved. Oh my goodness. But I could just never get it to work. There was just a lot of problems, y'all. So single stem sunflowers are where it's at as far as cut flowers grow. We only grow pollenless, and they still produce nectar for, good creatures if you're worried about that. But you can control the size of the bloom by the spacing on single stem sunflowers. So we plant single stem sunflowers 30-inch bed wide. We put 4 rows in that 30-inch bed, and then there's 6 inches in between the plants within the row. So they're pretty tight, and that produces the perfect, I say 3 to 5 inches, because what you'll find is even when we grow day-length neutral sunflowers, meaning they don't care if it's a short day or a long day, they still bloom. But in the short days, early spring and fall, they'll be a little smaller. In the middle of summer, they'll be bigger. But those are the size sunflowers that are perfect for bouquets and that our commercial customers are looking for. Nobody wants that 10-inch flower. Not for a cut flower. In a garden for fun, sure, right? And so on the other side of that, you control the size. So the only sunflower that we typically grow on our farm, and we plant it every week for 26 weeks, is Pro Cut. Alarm keeps going off. Didn't know, it's late, isn't it? So we like Pro Cut Orange. The reason I like Pro Cut Orange is because it's 55 to 60 days from seed to bloom. It's really quick. It's day length neutral, which means it doesn't matter if it's spring, summer, or fall, it will still bloom. You will see that the bloom varies in size a little bit based on that, but it's still, you get a very useful bloom. And if you were to spread out that same Pro Cut Orange to say 12-inch spacing, you'd get a whopper sunflower. So if your sunflowers are consistently too big for cut flowers, put them in tighter. Sometimes if you have really rich soil, that will happen to you. So I'm just reading. So when do you cut a sunflower? Really tight when the petals are just starting to lift off of the face of the flowers. Somebody just asked, do you harvest sunflower seeds and plant them next year? No. Excuse me. Seed saving is so much more than just saving the seeds. If they were hybrids, they've got to be isolated so there's not cross-pollination. Buying seeds is the least expensive part of my operation. So we want true to what I know I want as a commercial farmer. In a home garden, you can do whatever you want because it doesn't really matter what you get next year, but too much is riding on commercially. So we cut them just as the petals are starting to lift off, and because if you let them open fully out in the garden, then what happens is grasshoppers and cucumber or beetles in general will nibble on the petals. So we open them before they're really open and exposed to the creatures, and they fully open indoors, protected from those creatures. We do not net our sunflowers, but if I didn't grow so many, I might net them. They will go down in a rainstorm or windstorm, but we just plant too many to net them, so they do benefit from structure. So, all right, so now I'm going to get to some of the questions. So we're talking suns. I did get a couple of questions about cool flowers and other things, and I'm sorry, it's really hard to answer off-subject questions because then people will never be able to find that answer, because the Facebook Lives are really topic-driven. So I'm sorry about that, but when we do a Facebook Live about that topic, please feel free to repost your questions. So Aaron asked about different colors for different seasons for sunflowers. I grow one sunflower. The standard beautiful orange petals with the dark disc, because you know what? They sell every week. I do not vary it from in the fall with the dark burnt colors because A, they don't hold up, they drop petals. So I just plant the same sunflower throughout the season. Certainly if you're a home gardener, then that's just up to you what you want to grow in your garden. But a commercial cut, we have found it's just easier to manage and to tend to one same sunflower so that our succession planting is on schedule all the time. Now, Drew asked about conditioning. So sunflowers are a member of those the group of flowers that I call the dirty dozen. They expel a lot of organic matter into the water as soon as you cut them, as soon as the cut hits the water, which means it like instantly starts pollution. So we definitely use the chlorine pill, and we use chlorine pill in all of our harvest buckets, but especially sunflowers. And I will tell you that the powdery mildew that sunflowers get, the first sign usually is not so much marks on the leaves, but you get this mushy, stinky stem really quick, and nothing can prevent that once you have powdery mildew. But we use the chlorine tablet, and then I think if I'm not mistaken, that John Dole at NC State did a study, and I think it really doesn't make a difference whether you use flower food or not. A sunflower lasts the same with or without flower food, but the pre-treatment of chlorine does help to kill the bacteria that grows in the water because the sunflowers dump so much mess in there. Excuse me, y'all. I mean, this is terrible. She also asked about that not necessarily her sunflower cuts, but customers have commented about other cut sunflowers from the supermarket having gnats. I don't know that gnats are in your sunflowers, but they're drawn to the sunflowers because of the nectar that they excrete from the middle. So there's gnats in the environment, which, especially in the supermarket, there's tons of gnats in there because of all the fruit. And so I don't think sunflowers get gnats in the center not that I've ever experienced, but I do know when we used to take flowers to the nursing home, one of the reasons the nurses didn't like them on the tables is because the flies that are all over the nursing home, in the kitchen and different places, were drawn to the flowers. So I think it's more of the sunflowers drawn instead of the sunflowers bringing the problem in. So Audrey asked about branching or single stem, which I've already answered that. We always grow just single stem. And why pollenless? Pollen-producing flowers typically do not have a long vase life. They have a softer neck. That's just traits that come along with pollen. So that's why we grow pollenless sunflowers for cut flowers. Stephen asked about watering. I'm assuming that you're meaning in the garden. And as I said earlier, it depends on what your region is. If you get right much rain, we don't put film or irrigation down. We plant 2 to 3 week old transplants. We water them in really well the first day, and then they're on their own, and that works for us. You may have to irrigate if you're in a much drier environment where you're going. So let's see, what's this? We place a few tablespoons of bleach in a 5-gallon bucket, or tell our clients to place a teaspoon every fresh cut in their vase. So the difference between chlorine tablets and using just straight Clorox is that Clorox is not stable, meaning it doesn't last very long, and the chlorine pills last up to 72 hours. So does the same thing. Let's see. Do you rotate your flower crops yearly? How many crops yearly? How many years can you grow the sunflowers in the same rotation? We have normal our method of madness creates a natural rotation. You know, when a crop of some other plant is done, I mow it with the flail mower, till, and we plant sunflowers there. So I will plant sunflowers 2 times in a row in the same spot if they didn't have problems, but I typically try to move them around all the time. Let's see. So Kristen asked how to start sunflowers. Well, I think I've already shared that we start them in 128 plugs. Christine says she's struggling to grow sunflowers. Full sun, decent soil, and I'm telling you, starting them inside just changes everything. So I would start them. We already talked about when to harvest, just as the petals are starting to lift off of the disc in the middle. So Amanda asked, wait a minute. So Jackie, I'm getting out of order here. Jackie asked about hardening off questions. For us with sunflowers, we plant the plug trays. They just sit on the floor in our hot plant transplant room until they pop. Then they're moved outside because we don't have room to keep them inside. So they start hardening off from the get-go. So they're outside and they grow there until they go straight to the garden. Amanda asked about transporting suns to commercial customers. We bunch our suns in 10 groups of 10. And we rubber band the top and the bottom, and then they're in delivery buckets. Betsy wants to grow the perfect sunflower. If you want to grow the perfect sunflower, Betsy, you need to grow single stem, pollenless sunflowers. The gist I got from her question was that she really wants to grow. Alarm, I can't get to go away. If you're a home gardener, go for the branching ones. But if you want to grow the perfect cut flower, sunflower, pollenless single stems. And I just had so many branching questions. Lori asked about success with branching ones. Again, it's your idea of what is success. If it's cut them and take them into your house to last 3 days, that's fine. But as a commercial cut, you will not get branchers. Lauren had a lot of cool flower questions, which I cannot answer here. And then Jackie asked the best for the market or the florist. Again, single stems. There are other varieties that a lot of people have success with. I just chose Pro Cut oranges because they grow great for us. I love the look. It's the classic sunflower. It's the best-selling sunflower I have ever grown. We didn't always grow them that way, but we have for the last 5 years, and they just really do the best. How long do you cut your sunflower stems for market? So the other thing, and I'm going to go back here to the top and look at these other questions. Oh my goodness. It's a 1 bloom per plant. 1 sunflower, 1 plant. So you can cut it anywhere you want. It doesn't matter. But we cut ours for market. So it's sticking out the top of a 5-gallon bucket about this much above it. If you make them they're so heavy. The stems are just massive, right? And if you have too much stem, it just makes the buckets way too much. So we cut them about 4 inches above a 5-gallon bucket. So I have lots of hellos here. Everybody sells Wi-Fi. I don't know who that was that said that, but yeah, that's part of, paying the bills. Missouri, Michigan, Illinois. I got lots of hellos. Hello, Ontario, Nashville. I'm coming to Nashville. We just, in November. So let's see. I'm just looking for another question. So many people are flooded. So I already talked about using row cover. If you've got deer or squirrel or bird troubles, a row cover really helps. And Eileen, if you've got the deer eating your sunflowers, you can spray them. That really, really helps. Using deer spray. It had the same, we used to have to do that. They just don't even eat them anymore. So somebody asked, the best single stem for me is I grow Pro Cuts. And let's see, I do not harvest seed. I buy all my seed new every year. Our water wheel transplant has a minimum of 8 inches. Will 8 inches be too far apart to create a large cut? So, Pamela, to be able to use your... Now, I have a friend that does use a wheel planter, and they put 2 rows down the middle of a 30-inch bed because they use a bed maker too. I'm just thinking. And they're on the bigger side, so you'll have to figure that out. You'll just have to try. Do you have a refrigerator cooler to store your sunflowers? I do have a walk-in cooler, but I do not put sunflowers in it because it really dehydrates the petals. And we sell them so fast. So we cut them tight. They sit in our air-conditioned building, and they're usually gone within 36 to 48 hours. And our customers want them open partially when they get them. So the time to plant sunflowers is right at the end of your last spring frost. How soon do you sow your sunflowers before putting them out in the garden? 2 to 3 weeks. And yes, florists definitely want the brown center, yellow petals, or orange petals, actually. I love the green center sunflower. I can't give that sucker away. So what you have to decide, are you growing what you like or what sells? That's the difference between a hobby grower and a flower farmer. No, the chlorine pill is not certified organic. No flower food that works is. So it's not, somebody's asking how much chlorine. It's a special tablet. It's called a CVB tablet. We sell, it's called a Gerber tab also. We sell them in 50 pill bottles. I'll put the link in the feed for this. And the pill is stable. There's a lot of great home remedies. Let me just say that. The problem with home remedies is they don't last very long in the water. They're typically gone in 6 hours, and that doesn't really help your flowers. So commercially grown products are the best. So let's see. Do you rotate your flowers? I think I already answered that. How long do I cut my stems? I already answered that, Claire. Just about 3 or 4 inches above a 5-gallon bucket. How do you replenish your sunflower beds? We put the organic fertilizer at every bed. You know, we pull out a crop, put down fertilizer, and replant, transplant. What are 128 plugs? So if you're a commercial grower, plug trays are the black flats. The number indicates how many holes are in that flat. And a 128 is about as big as, smaller than a golf ball. And that just means that 128 plants fit in that flat tray. Do you actually begin starting them indoors? Oh, yay. When do you? 2 to 3 weeks before I plant them out. What about the Pro Cut Red? It drops petals. So there's lots of different Pro Cut colors. And I just went with the standard commercial color, the dark brown with the orange petals. It holds its petals. Lasts 2 to 3 weeks. The other colors, the lemon's not so bad, but the lemon's neck is also pretty stiff. Yeah, so there's lots of people commenting, hey, 2 sisters. I saw them down in Texas. How long do you use row cover for? Well, if you're trying to protect your transplants from birds, squirrels, and deer, I would hoop them and get them as big before they start pushing the cover off. And so get them as big as you can. How much do you sell suns? And I don't talk about that because it's very regionally based. How far do you space apart in the field? Sorry if you've already answered that. Yeah, 4 rows in a 30-inch bed, 6 inches apart in the row. Hey, Latasha, welcome. So thankful. Thank you so much. So I got my soil blocking kit in the mail today. Oh, great. Can't wait to try it. How long do your sunflowers stay? 2 to 3 weeks. So a lot of these are questions that people just came on later. Good question, Claire. How do you strip leaves? So one of the things that we do in Flower Farming School online, the course, is we show a video of how we strip the stems while they're still in the garden before they're cut. We only leave one of the very top leaves on the sunflowers because it's very difficult to keep them hydrated. And we really are, the leaves are typically pretty, but they're so big, they just interfere with the rest of the bouquet. So we just, sorry, I'm trying to look here. We just leave that one very tippy top, and that helps your flowers to last longer. And we strip them all in the garden. So do you use downy mildew resistant seed? Yes, they do sell a Pro Cut series now, orange, that is mildew resistant. I've only had powdery mildew once, and it was horrible. We lost thousands of dollars of sunflowers. After you harvest, do you pull out leftover stems by hand or compost or After you harvest, do you pull out leftover stems? There are no leftover stems. We harvest everything. Everything comes out. Anything left in the garden when the bed is done is flail mowed. So when is the last date you sow sunflowers? Well, it's about, I'm just thinking, there's 60 days from seed to flower, which is slower in the fall. My last frost date is mid-November. So I think like mid-September, and we may or may not get that last planting. I'm confused on spacing in your book. Vegetables love flowers. It says for bouquets. Oh, this is long. I don't know if I can read this all or not. For bouquet size, 4 beds. So, I mean, I can make a 36-inch bed is more widely used. So it would still be 4 rows in a 30 to 36-inch bed with 6 inches between the plants and the row. So there you go. We use the netting. You can use the 2-inch blocker to start those, or you can use plug trays. We don't overseed and thin later. We don't plant seeds in the garden. So planting transplants is the most cost-effective and the most efficient way to plant sunflowers. So I am, again, please remember to like and share this broadcast. After I'll hit finish and share, and it'll be on our feed. But then to have it on your feed, when you share it, it'll be there. And then, of course, then we always post it to our Facebook page. I really appreciate everybody coming, and hope that I've given you some tips. So she's asking, do you use purchased mixed or your own for sunflowers? We use we don't use blocking mix necessarily. We just use a commercial seed starting mix that we cut 50-50 with compost. So let's see. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. You're so welcome, y'all. I don't direct sow anything in the garden except in the fall, a few cool flowers, which are all in the book. Oh, you meant the stumps. So yeah, we have to flail mow them. You cannot pull them out. You'll kill yourself trying to pull out stumps. I could not. Buying a tractor is what turned my life around. Being able to mow and remove sunflowers. That's what allowed me to do weekly sunflowers. Any tips for popping that many flowers out of the trays that quickly? Well, we only grow sunflowers in plug trays. Almost everything else we soil block for that very reason. And when they're 2 to 3 weeks old, they pop right out and we pop them in. And thank you, Kathy. So I'm going to sign off because, y'all, I have to go do a program in just a few hours, and I'm trying to conserve my voice. So please like and share this broadcast. And I think we had a boatload of people on here today. And I am loving rainy Seattle, and my allergies are screaming, but I'm having a lot of fun here and meeting a lot of great people. I did a podcast with Deborah Prenzine on slow flowers, so look for that. Her Slow Flowers website, it'll be out on that, about my book, Vegetables Love Flowers, and that was so great. And thank you all for being here. And yeah, I'm just drinking about a gallon of water a day, trying to flush all this ookiness out of me. And hey, till we meet again, thegardenersworkshop.com. Like and share this broadcast, and that'll keep bringing me back. Ciao.